I currently work for the support team for a product that provides messaging and app services for schools in which the data uses several different database information retrieval types on its way from the school's Student Information System, or SIS, into our product's database. The way schools' information is processed into our system utilizes a client-server side system, in which the database on the school end is accessed by a program that runs queries at predetermined intervals to create data files and send them to a server on our end. While using a client-server system does have the benefit of improved security, I've seen that there is a slight downside in that the link requires security credentials in order to access. If the credentials or location of the database changes, which often happens on an annual basis when a database server name will change with the new school year, the query cannot run and no files will be sent to our server. The client-server system also relies on a single point of failure, meaning that if one aspect of the connection is unavailable, the import of the data will fail. I've seen this on regular occasions, as if the server is shut down or inaccessible, the data cannot be read and the database on our end cannot update. While we do have precautions in place that will repeatedly attempt to access the files in the case of a failure, in cases of long downtimes, this is not going to help and the process is going to fail. We can run the process on our end manually as well, but if the database on their end is not accessible, this will not matter. In situations where schedules are set up to necessitate the query for new data on a regular basis, a user is going to want to be assured that a backup system is in place. In the case of my particular product, there are multiple servers that can run a data import so that if the first server is busy, a second server can be used instead. In addition, triggers can be set up at certain times so that if new data is not uploaded by a specific time, a user will be emailed with a notification that the process has not run. Scalability is defined by the ability of a database to grow in size in terms of both content and user base without having negative consequences to the performance of queries or end results. This requires that the software used for the database uses multiple parallel paths in order to process the data, using indexes in order to best answer queries, and minimizing shared resources for the most efficient returns. A backend processor, in terms of database design, pertains to the code that is actually used in order to query, process, or to make revisions to the database itself. As an example, in the product that I work for, we'll set up a query on our end that will create the files out of their database. This is a backend process that the end user does not have any knowledge of. Instead, the end user will see a front-end processor in the face of the program that we use in order to run the query. In this program, called Data Link, the user can alter the query using a graphical interface to determine which information they wish to send and when they wish to send it, but they have no direct contact with the query itself. Similarly, on the other end, they have a graphical interface that allows them to look at the data that has been uploaded to our database for their school district by searching for names, schools, or other contact information. But the database itself and the actual queries that run when the search fields are made are not visible to the user. At work, we use Google Docs to share internal knowledge base data, primarily documents and spreadsheets, but more recently adding OneNote to our repertoire in the efforts to build a more manageable structure for our internal documentation. While using Docs was helpful, the information was difficult to organize and more difficult to maintain, as with over a dozen potential editors of the pages, documents tended to be either over-edited to the point where we were often accidentally undoing the edits of coworkers, or repetitive as the same information was often in multiple places. OneNote, with the ability to create a full method of organization, seems to be easier to use, though there is currently only one person able to edit it, which may cut down on overwriting issues. Client-side scripting languages enable users to run scripts via their web browser rather than on the server. A client-side script like JavaScript runs in the browser itself and interacts directly with the HTML elements of the page. In one of our products, the user's list page was created using JavaScript so that the entire listing of users appears upon first appearance as we see on the left, but the user could then filter out its users immediately by entering a name or using the filtering checkbox as we see on the right. In a server-side scripting language, the script is actually run on the web server itself and brings back specific data relating to the request itself. An example for this is the Weather Channel's website, which will show the temperature and forecast for your location if the location functionality has been enabled. The disadvantage to this is that it can increase processing time, and depending on the action, this can be significantly longer than a client-side execution. Development frameworks such as ASP.NET and Cold Fusion assist in increasing the malleability of websites by using a pre-built structure that handles the more common features of a site, thereby allowing the programmer to focus on the site's individual aspects. PHP is a specific scripting language that can be embedded as part of the HTML code on a web page and is often used in conjunction with a web framework.